Hello, BookTube. I'm here to talk about Emile Zola's the Rougon-Macquart series of books. This was the first one I read in January. I'm a bit late getting the video up. This is The Fortune of the Rougons. There's 20 books in total, and I'm going to read them in the chronological order that Zola suggested, so it's not in the publication order. This one was published in, and they don't give me a date here. It was translated in 2012, but it's the first chronological story, The Fortune of the Rougons. Emile Zola lived from 1840 to 1902. He was 62 years old when he died. And the purpose of writing this series is to sort of emulate Balzac, Honor de Balzac's Comedy Humaine, of writing sort of an overall series of books that encompass all of society. And the period that Zola decides to use is the Second Empire, which starts around 1851 with a coup d'etat by the current president, Napoleon. So he sets himself up as Napoleon III, I think it is, or Louis Napoleon III. And I'll actually read from the second book at the big introduction. It's the best. It's like a paragraph at the beginning here. It's much more precise than I could possibly give. It says the main achievement of Emile Zola as a writer was his 20-volume novel cycle, Le Rougon-Macquart, 1871 to 1893, in which the fortunes of a family are followed over several decades. The various family members spread throughout all levels of society, and through their lives Zola examines methodically the social, sexual, and moral landscape of the late 19th century, creating an epic sense of social transformation. The Rougons represent the hunt for wealth and position, their members rising to commanding positions in the worlds of government and finance. The Macquarts, the illegitimate branch, are the submerged proletariat, and with the exception of Lisa Macquart, and he listed a number of books that she's a major role in. The Morets, descended from the Macquart line, are the bourgeois, tradesmen, and provincial bourgeoisie. Zola, in the quintessential novelist of modernity, understood as a time of tumultuous change. The motor of change was the rapid growth of capitalism, with all it that it entailed in terms of the transformation of the city, new forms of social practice and economic organization, the heightened political pressures. Zola was fascinated by change, and specifically by the emergence of the new mass society. Now, he sort of developed something called a naturalism, thinking that people's hereditary environments dictated basically what they were like, and you see that in the story. The Fortune of the Rougons is sort of the origin story. It starts out though with it's basically the coup d'etat of 1851 has happened, and there was opposition to it, and there were workers that were marching to meet sort of the army, and we have two characters here: a 13-year-old girl, Miette, Marie, I think is her real name, and then Silveri. They're both orphans. Silveri is being brought up by his grandmother, who is the sort of the matriarch, I should say, of the Rougon-Macquarts, and she sort of was unfaithful, and she had a lover, which then created the Macquart side. So you got these brothers that are and sisters that are in opposition to the legitimate side of the family. And we learn that in a flashback of everything that sort of happened, but it's mainly following these two young the children, basically. Silveri is about 17, I think, and she's 13, and they go on this march to 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 sort of, they want republicanism back. Like they don't want an empire again, because rights were going to be taken away from the workers, and so they're quite idealistic, both of them, and they sort of represent, like, they are sort of mythical characters. A lot of these characters are mythical, but they stand in, as it says in the introduction of the second one, they stand in for different areas of society. And like the characters in here, the Macquarts and the Rougons, they're just all despicable characters. The only good characters are Miette and Silveri. They're idealistic. They actually see things quite clearly, or at least Silveri does. And he is he's a reader. He reads, so he is knowledgeable, and it's Zola is sort of like, it gets to a point where, and this is a spoiler, so if you don't want to know the spoiler for it, then it's probably best to stop. But basically, he kills the girl, Miette, 13 years old. It's like, you bastard! You've killed one of the best characters, and then and he goes on. And near the end, Silveri is captured, and it's just a very, very graphic depiction of him being shot. It's like, his brains burst out like a pomegranate. It's just, and even like, the kids, they're sort of the cousin of the girl, like, he's happy that this has happened. And it's like, these are bloodthirsty people, and they represent sort of, because of sort of the good, I guess, in society that's being wiped out. And it's like, they just don't come to a good end. That's for sure. And it's the story of this family, the foundation of this family, and the one Macquart side, one son of this the matriarch. He's off at in the army, and he comes back and he expects a part of the legacy that his mother had, but his older brother, the Rougon, took the money, like, sort of swindled her, just treated her badly, their mother, and took the money. And he's trying to get some of this back, and they don't want it. Like, his new wife, this guy's wife, doesn't want anything to do with them, but does give him a little bit of money to try to shut him up. But he sort of drinks it away. He's not a very good character either, even though he's like, even though it's like he's been swindled by his half brother. He still doesn't do well, and he winds up getting married by a woman who supports him, and he has some children, so he gets the children when they get old enough to work to support him, so he doesn't have to work anything. But then they sort of realize that, we don't want to do this anymore. So yeah, it's just very despicable characters, very hateful characters. But again, it's like, you read it, if you don't know the sort of the historical or the societal situation and sort of what happened, like, since the very schizophrenic period, the whole beginning of the 19th century in France, because you've got the revolution, and you've got the atrocities there, and then you swing to the empire, then the king comes back and back and forth, and it's sort of the people are like the workers, the poor are being abused through all this, and the bourgeoisie and the rich don't want freedoms for the poor. They want to be able to make money, power, and all this type of thing. And it's like, no, that sort of sounds very similar to what's happening today. So it is an interesting thing that it is you know happening again, this type of thing. So it is a very, very relevant story with people, the characters and the storyline. But yeah, this was very powerful. But it is, like I say, uh, nobody, like everybody comes to a sad ending, and the characters that you like die, and the characters that you don't like, well, they succeed, which happens, I think, in sort of real life. So to a large extent. The only thing is, like, there is a little bit of a creepiness to this, to some ways, um, and I can understand why he's done it to a certain point. I mean, Zola, uh, because it's sort of like the Republic, and France is sort of in an adolescent stage, in a sense, and it has potential to be something better. And he uses this Miette as sort of, I think, as a way of describing that. He says that she's 13 years old, so she's on the cusp of womanhood. But he starts getting into a little creepy description of her body and her breasts on a couple occasions, which is sort of like, a little too far. But it's like, yeah, because at 14 years old, she would have been of a marriageable, or 14 or 15 of a marriageable age during that period. And that's all fine to sort of say that, but he goes a little too far, which is a little uncomfortable for to read today. But other than that, it's pretty good, and as I said, it's brutal. The some of the violence in it is brutal, and you just, but you want the brutality to maybe happen to some other characters that it doesn't happen to, and but that's the thing. But once you put it in context of the period, then it sort of makes sense, and it's like you could really make so many parallels to the way the characters are, to like they're mythical characters in a sense, and that's what the introduction talks about as well. They're mythical characters that they stand in for the levels of society that there was at the time, and they embody those things just fully, and not always in a good sense. So anyway, I'm starting on the second book now, and hopefully in the next few days I will have a video up on the second book, which is His Excellency Eugene Rougon. Thank you, BookTube. Talk to you later.